Welcome everyone. We're just expecting a couple of extra people, so we'll be starting in a minute or two. This session is being recorded. There'll be a space at the end for Q&A, so you'll have a chance to ask any questions you've got. So just expecting a couple more people to join us. I think we'll start in a minute or so, and people can join in. I'm Alison from Career Ready, and I'm hosting this session. And just for any new people that have joined, keep your mic on mute, and we are recording the session. A couple more joining us. Welcome to the new people. I feel like I'm on a record circle here, but I'm Alison from Career Ready. Please keep your mic on mute, and the session is being recorded. We'll be starting in a minute or so. I think we've almost got everyone who is planning on attending. So I'll start introducing the program, the session. This session's about a career in protecting innovation, which you might not have heard of. You'll find out a lot about it as the session goes on. We're really pleased to have partners here from Mathy and Squire'a who are here to tell us about it. So just for everyone new that's arrived, keep your mic on mute. The session's being recorded, and there'll be a space to ask questions at the end. So I think most people have arrived now. I'll carry on admitting people as they come along. If you have any questions, do bob them in chat. We've got quite a busy session, so they'll probably be picked up at the end, maybe. But Rachel from Mathy's is monitoring the chat, so she'll have an idea of when to feedback on that. She might even feed back in the chat if it's a quick answer. So I'll now hand over to James Pitchford from Mathy and Squire'a, who's going to introduce the session to you. So thanks everyone.
Great, thanks very much, Alison, and good morning, everyone. I'm James from Mathy and Squire'a, James Pitchford, and I'm joined by my colleagues Rachel Evans and Rob Richardson, and we're really pleased to be with you this morning to give you a little bit of an insight into careers in connection with protecting innovation and intellectual property as well, which is a fascinating subject that we're very pleased to be able to tell you a little bit about. So I just hope that we can, there we are. So this is us, Mathy and Squire'a, Career in Protecting Innovation. So just to introduce our firm to you just for a minute, we are a firm of patent and trademark attorneys. So our day-to-day work is helping inventors and companies to protect inventions and brand names, company names, innovation in general, really. And we'll tell you a little bit more about what we do in a few minutes. We're a top-tier firm of our kind, and we have almost 200 people with offices around the country and overseas. So some of you might not be so familiar with intellectual property. It's an absolutely fascinating area, all to do with innovation, new things, new technology, new developments, and so on. So I thought it might be helpful just to give you a quick introduction to it. So in a sense, intellectual property can be considered to be creations of the mind for which some kind of exclusive rights are recognised. And IP falls into two main groups. You've got the registered types of IP, which include in particular patents to protect inventions. And that's what I work in, and that's what Rachel here works in. And trademarks, which protect company names, brand names, logos, slogans, and things like that. And that's the area that Rob here works in. There are also unregistered types of IP, such as copyright for creative works, videos, documents, films, music, and so on. The special thing about the registered types of IP is that although it involves a formal registration process, and that's where we come in helping people through that process. Once you've secured your registered type of IP, such as a patent or a trademark, you don't need to prove that someone else has actually copied you to be able to get them to stop. So you have a monopoly right to that invention or to that trademark, and the mere fact that someone else is doing something that falls within the scope of your protection is enough to be able to get them to stop. And you don't need to actually prove that they've in any way copied you. So that's why it's a really valuable kind of thing to have, because quite often it can be extremely difficult to prove that someone has actually copied you rather than coming up with something by coincidence. So these kind of registered types of IP are really valuable and really helpful to businesses. So just as a little bit of an insight into those, first of all, patents. I'm sure many of you have heard of patents. They protect inventive concepts in relation to products or methods or processes, and they give the owner of the patent the right to be able to stop other people from copying or making or selling or importing the invention as defined in the patent without permission. And the process of obtaining a patent is that you start off by filing a patent application at a patent office. That work is normally done by a patent attorney such as me or Rachel. And then the patent application is examined by a patent office examiner. And for something to be patentable, the invention that you put in the patent application needs to be new and inventive, and that means not obvious, in view of anything that's already been made available to the public before the patent application was filed. And we'll go into these kind of career options in relation to being a patent attorney or a patent office examiner in a couple of minutes. So in the meantime, I'll just ask Rob here to say a few words about trademarks, which is the area that he specialises in.
Sure. Thanks, James. So the other area of intellectual property that you'll often encounter are trademarks. So whilst patents would generally protect the actual product itself, the trademarks generally will protect the brand that surrounds the product. So these are the things that you see on a daily basis when you go into the supermarket, into clothing stores, etc. You know, the brands that are associated with the actual products themselves. So they protect not only brand names but also company names, logos and slogans. There's quite a broad spectrum of protection for trademarks. And like patents, they give the owners of the trademark the right to stop other persons from using the registered trademarks and or a mark that's similar to that mark. So it's not just about an identical mark or identical use. There's also other inquiries into whether it's similar to the marks. So it gives them quite a broad scope of protection that assists in protecting their brand. Like a patent, a trademark is registered at the Trademarks Registry. It involves an application process whereby the trademark is basically split into various classes, and then it's examined not only for to determine whether they are earlier marks, but also whether that mark is distinctive. So like a patent where they look at whether it is new and inventive, a trademark's main inquiry is whether it's distinctive and whether it's able to basically separate one form of goods from another. It goes through an examination process where it's examined by an examiner, and we as trademark attorneys basically would assist an applicant in getting their trademark through to registration.
Great, thanks, Rob. So we thought it might be quite fun to ask you guys out there to have a look at these images and to have a think about what IP, what intellectual property might be present in these different items. So we've got a mobile phone, we've got a Dyson handheld cleaner, we've got the Nike logo and slogan, and we've got a Kit Kat. So this is a little bit experimental, but if anyone out there would like to offer up any thoughts as to what aspects of any of these products might be protected by IP, intellectual property, feel free to enter something into the chat function, or if we don't get anything in the chat function, Rob and Rachel and I will have a quick chat about it ourselves. But yeah, if you'd like to offer up any thoughts about any IP that might be present in any of these things. So Rachel, you're out there. You're keeping an eye on the chat, aren't you?
I am, yep. Nothing yet.
Nothing as yet. Okay.
Don't be shy, folks. Just think of anything.
You don't have to give us anything specific. Just even the type of IP that you think. Yeah, Nike logo. We've got that in the chat.
Yeah,
it's a good one.
That's right. So, Rob, would you like to say something about the Nike logo then?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So both. So in this example, there are actually two trademarks. There's the Nike logo itself. So what's referred to as the swoosh. That would be protected on its own as what we in the industry called a device mark, as opposed to a logo mark. And then in addition to that, there is also the slogan "Just Do It," which is also protected as a trademark. And generally that will be filed as just a simple, what we call a word mark. And it's a really strong form protection.
Yeah, and so Rob, I guess therefore the KitKat name is probably also protected as a trademark.
Yes. So KitKat again as well. There you've got I mean, there are a couple of trademarks there. You've got KitKat, you've got Nestle. In some cases, you can protect things like the packaging. So without the KitKat there, but the actual form of how the packaging looks can be protected as a trademark. And in some instances, although it is a bit of a contentious matter, you can protect the shape of a product. So, for instance, the way that the KitKat bar is created. But in this case, there's been a lot of litigation around whether the KitKat form and how it's split into those 4 different bars is actually protectable, but I won't get into that. But just to say that it is possible. In this case, it wasn't successful, but it is certainly possible. So there are actually 3 or 4 different trademarks in that picture.
Right, Rachel, has anyone commented on either the phone or the cleaner?
Yeah, so we had the design of the iPhone.
Yeah.
Excellent. And then in the iPhone, IPs for the design, the shape, and how it's arranged. So the arrangement of social networks and things. Yeah, excellent. And I guess all of the social network logos there will also be trademarks.
They would, wouldn't they? Yeah, that's a really good point. The Facebook logo, Twitter, and all the others, exactly. And as well as the design of the phone itself, the actual technology that goes on in the chips within the phone would be protected with patents. The actual microprocessors and memory chips and things like that, the telecommunications chips. Rachel, would you like to perhaps say something about the IP in the Dyson cleaner?
Thanks, James. Yeah, so Dyson are very well known for being quite prolific in the patent field. So within this single handheld cleaner, you will have in the tens, at least potentially the hundreds of patents, designs. I think they've tried to trademark things like the shape of the actual cleaners. They were quite distinctive, aren't they? And for each part, so like the brush on the end, they've probably got a design covering just that little attachment. And then again, the working parts of the vacuum will be patented as well. So within that single device, you've got a lot of intellectual property that will be covered.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, Dyson have really emphasized the innovations that they come up with, and like the cyclone mechanism within the cleaner. That's something that's certainly patented, and they've used in many of their products. So great, thanks Rachel, thanks everyone for your comments there, that's really good. So if we move on, we'll give you a kind of a worked example of the kind of history of an invention from when it's first created through the protection process and the different types of IP that come up during that, and also the different careers in relation to IP that are possible. So let's imagine that we have a couple of university researchers here. So they have invented a new kind of medicine. So here we can see them working away in their lab. So the kinds of things that they might have invented might be a new active ingredient for the medicine, so a new compound or new composition. Perhaps also a new capsule material that actually surrounds the medicine to make a soluble capsule in some way. Maybe there's a new method of actually manufacturing the medicine or the capsule. And you can also actually get patents for new medical uses of known medicines. So there's a lot of potential innovation that has that can come out of university research like this. And a lot of potentially patentable inventions that can arise. Of course, inventions don't need to be in connection with medicine. They can also be in connection with any other area of technology, such as mobile phones. Here we've got a mobile phone mast, an electric motor for a car, or any other kind of electrical or electronic product. But let's, for the sake of this discussion today, let's imagine that we're focusing on those university researchers who've invented a new kind of medicine in their lab. So the first kind of IP career we'd like to introduce you to is that of the University Technology Transfer Officer. So this is someone who is based at a university, and they would normally have a degree, quite often a PhD in a science or technology subject. And their job is to work within the university and to assess the inventor's inventions. So this is the academics in the university to assess their inventions and to determine whether those inventions are actually worth protecting. And normally that would be by way of patents. So these guys, these University Technology Transfer Officers, they liaise with patent attorneys such as ourselves to prepare and file patent applications and obtain granted patents that protect what those university researchers have invented. They also help the inventors to set up spin-out companies or to license or sell the invention to other companies. And they also do commercial activities like coordinating commercialization strategies or license negotiations and so on. So that's a first career, a really interesting career in relation to IP, and these people are based within universities themselves. So the next kind of career that we'll introduce you to is what I do and what Rachel does and what many of our colleagues here do, which is the career of a patent attorney. So this is a separate career from the University Technology Transfer Officer. So patent attorneys are based quite often in firms such as ours. It's what we refer to as private practice. But you can also have patent attorneys that are based actually within companies, and those people are referred to as being in-house, often within quite large technology or pharmaceutical companies. And in order to become a patent attorney, you have to have a degree in a science or technology subject. Many of us, but not all of us, have PhDs as well. And there are also quite a few exams that you have to take in order to qualify as a patent attorney. Rachel will say a little bit more about that in a few minutes. So our kind of bread and butter job is to prepare and file patent applications at the Patent Office to protect those inventions, such as the new medicine that we saw the university researchers with earlier. So we represent the applicant, so the person that's applying for the patent during the examination process, to help them to overcome any objections raised by the Patent Office examiner, and at the end of the process to obtain granted patents. We also get involved with challenging other people's patents and defending patents from attack by others. And we liaise with, as well as University Technology Transfer Officers and inventors themselves, we also liaise with IP solicitors and barristers whenever there's some kind of dispute that's happened in connection with a patent. For example, if another company infringes our client's patent. So the next career is that of the trademark attorney, and Rob will say a little bit about this.
Thanks, James. So like a patent attorney, trademark attorneys generally are either based in a firm like Mathy and Squire'a, or they can also be in-house. Generally in-house positions are where you're working for a large company such as Nike or one of the large sort of fashion brands, and you would be administering their trademark portfolio. But even in that role, you're still going to be often liaising with trademark attorneys in private practice. So it's kind of a sort of a collaborative effort between private and in-house. Generally, in terms of degrees, we will do a degree in law or business or science. Although for a trademark attorney, you don't have to have a degree in science. You can just have a degree in law. And then we have professional exams in order to become a chartered trademark attorney, which we do once we're in practice. So our job really is to assist clients in filing and preparing trademark applications, and having a look at whether the trademark itself is actually protectable. So in this instance, where the students have invented a new pill or drug, you can't just call it the blue and white pill. It has to have a name that is going to be able to be used in the market, so that pharmacists, doctors, etc. Can refer to that drug and it can be dispensed correctly to the patient. So our job really is to have a look at what's being proposed by the university students in this case, and see whether it's something that's actually protectable as a trademark. Once we've determined whether it is protectable as a trademark, we then will assist in creating the application and filing the specifications, and then we'll help them with the application process. So we'll help them through the examination stages to overcome any objections if there are from the trademarks officers, and ultimately the goal is really to obtain a registration for the trademark, which they can then enforce against other people. So once a trademark is registered, our job is not done. We also then assist in obviously challenging any other trademarks that we come across, which might be conflicting or similar to our trademark, our client's trademark. And we would also then obviously defend any objections to our own clients' trademarks. So if there's any attack against them, we are there to assist them. So we also, like a patent attorney, we liaise with IP solicitors and barristers, particularly if sort of proceedings get to a court stage. So it really is a collaborative effort between various different persons in the IP career path.
Great, thanks, Rob. So the next career that we'd like to introduce you to is that of the Patent Office Examiner. So again, this is a separate career path to the earlier ones that we've looked at. So Patent Office Examiners are based at a patent office, such as the UK Intellectual Property Office or the European Patent Office. Patent offices are generally government-run institutions, although the European Patent Office spans across many countries in Europe and isn't tied to any one particular country. But the UK Patent Office is basically run by the UK government. Patent Office examiners have to have a degree, sometimes a PhD, in a science or technology subject. And their job is to examine the patent applications that we as patent attorneys file to ensure that the patent application meets the legal requirements for a patent to be awarded. In particular, to check that the invention that is the subject of the patent application is new and not obvious in view of anything that's already been published before. So the Patent Office Examiner will correspond with patent attorneys like myself and Rachel, and sometimes we meet in person, sometimes we have Zoom calls, sometimes we speak over the phone quite a lot of the time we just write to one another, and the Patent Office examiner will raise objections if they think the invention is not new or inventive, and it's our job as patent attorneys to convince the examiner that the invention is new and inventive, often involving modifying the patent application in the process to reach the point where the examiner will grant a patent. You also have senior examiners who handle adversarial cases where patents are challenged by others. So the next separate career is that of the IP solicitor. So Rob, maybe you could say a little bit about this.
Yeah, sure.
James, James, can I just interrupt? We've got a question from Saeed. I don't know if you want to take it now or at the end.
Yes, please, yeah.
Do you want to come off mute, Saeed?
Okay, so how common is patent trolling and why is it allowed to happen?
That's a really good question. So patent trolling is what happens when certain companies obtain IP rights, but they don't actually make the product themselves. So they might get a patent that covers a new mobile phone chip, say, but they're not actually a manufacturing company, but they have nevertheless obtained a patent for that technology. And then what these companies do, they're also known sometimes as patent licensing companies. What they do is they then find manufacturing companies that are making, in this case, a mobile phone chip that falls within the scope of that patent that the company has obtained. And they look to obtain license fees from that company because the company is at least arguably doing something that infringes their patent. What they do is not illegal by any means, but it is sometimes viewed as a little bit controversial because the company that you've identified that owns the patent is not actually making anything themselves. So they are basically trying to get license revenue because the mobile phone company is infringing their patent, or at least they would allege that the company is infringing. I'd like to try and be quite sort of neutral about those companies, really, because in some cases they do liaise with inventors, sometimes university inventors, who aren't in a position to commercialize the invention themselves, but they will help to enforce the rights in relation to that invention when, as I say, for example, a mobile phone company is making something that infringes those rights. So does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks. So yeah, Rob, the interesting world of the IP solicitor.
Yeah, so an IP solicitor is generally they're generally not based in-house. They generally are based at a law firm, and often they will have a degree in science or technology, and it's followed generally by a law conversion course. And that's normally done what we call the graduate diploma in law, or alternatively they can also do a law degree first and then do what is called the LPC, or the legal practice course, which basically involves a training contract at a law firm. They are generally specialist litigators in terms of looking at things like commercial agreements, negotiations, and disputes relating to IP. So by way of example, a patent license agreement. So that's generally why they would also have a science degree, so they can understand the actual nature of the dispute itself. And their job really is to liaise between the patent attorney and trademark attorney and coordinate court cases. So they generally are called upon when a matter hasn't been able to be settled and it now needs to go to court.
Yeah, great, thank you. And a separate career again is that of the IP barrister. So Rob, would you like to say a little bit about what an IP barrister does?
Yeah, sure. So a barrister is they're based at what we are called chambers, and they are really a specialist court practitioner. So they are the ones that you generally will see presenting a case in court. They would be instructed by a solicitor or a patent attorney or a trademark attorney, and what their job really is, they are experts in the actual case law and the law itself, and their job is to present arguments to the court as to why their case is the one that should be accepted by the court. Ways to get there are generally you will do what is called the bar vocational course and a pupillage. So this is generally a period of time where you are almost like an apprentice under a qualified barrister. And after completing that, you then become a barrister yourself, and you would then join a group of other barristers, as we mentioned, the court chambers. And barristers generally, as I said, will be represented in court, but they also often called upon to advise on cases and the likelihood of success. So they would provide detailed opinions, and we as trademark attorneys and patent attorneys will often rely on these opinions to advise our clients whether to go ahead with a case or not.
Yeah, great. So in the example of our university researchers that have invented a new medicine, and then the patent attorneys have protected the actual medicine itself with a patent, and a trademark attorney like Rob has protected the name of the medicine with a trademark. If someone either copies the medicine itself and infringes the patent, or if they copy the name and infringe the trademark, then that kind of dispute would go to court, and we've seen that the court case would be assisted by an IP solicitor, and the court case would be presented by an IP barrister. And the court case would be presided over by an IP judge, who is another career in IP, really. So the IP judge is based at the High Court, and their background would be that they would be an IP barrister with many years of successful experience behind them, and they would be invited to become a judge when they are sufficiently experienced and senior. They preside over the legal disputes in court or in hearings, and they rule on matters of law and give judgments as to, for example, whether a patent is invalid. That means whether it should be knocked out, or whether a patent is infringed. So I hope we've given you a good overview of different careers, different career options within the world of intellectual property. And just as one sort of quick take-home message for you, really, in connection with all of these, is that by having a degree in science or technology, all of these different careers are open to you. And as we've seen, for many of them, you actually have to have a degree in science or technology if you want to pursue these careers. So it's a really good reason for having a background in science or technology to get involved in the world of IP. So yeah, I could say a little bit about me. So my background is that I come from the south coast of England. I grew up in the town of Deal on the coast and went to school in Dover. And we've got a picture at the top here of Dover Castle, very close to the White Cliffs of Dover. And when I was at school, I had a summer job in 2 summers working on the cross-channel ferries going between Dover and Calais. So I would go from Dover to Calais and back again 3 times a day, 6 trips in total. And it was great. I really enjoyed doing that as a summer job. I went to school in Dover, at Dover Grammar School for Boys, which is a state grammar school. I studied A-levels in maths and physics and chemistry and managed to get good grades, and because of that I managed to get a place at Downing College in Cambridge, and I studied physics and material science, and stayed on and did a PhD, in fact, in material science. And then once I had finished there, I started training as a patent attorney and qualified after about 5 years. And I've stayed as a patent attorney ever since, and it's a really interesting job. Every day is something different. I get to meet all sorts of interesting inventors and find out about all sorts of interesting inventions. So let me hand over to Rachel, who will say a little bit about herself.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Rachel. I am a technical assistant in Mathy's, which essentially means I'm a trainee patent attorney. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of background about where I come from, how I got to where I am, and basically what I do day to day. So we'll go to the next slide, James, please. So this is me. This is I put this picture in because one of my favourite things about living down south is that there's more cricket, and it's sunny enough that you can actually go to cricket games. I, as you can probably tell, grew up in Scotland. So I am from a small town just south of Edinburgh. Lived there until I was 18. Went to the local schools. It's a sort of place where like everyone knows everyone and not a huge amount exciting happens ever. This is a picture of my high school. It's the only one I could find because a couple of years ago it burnt down and they're currently rebuilding. The photo on the top right here is, so at the age of 6 I started doing Irish dancing, and the reason was because I used to just fall over. So my mum tried to take me to ballet, and it turned out I was far too clumsy. So someone suggested Irish dancing. The reason I put this in is because when you start applying for jobs, people say, "I'll put in everything, put your hobbies, everything." And it feels ridiculous saying that you did Irish dancing as a child. We honestly spent about 20 minutes in my interview talking about Irish dancing, and it was brilliant because it totally put me at ease. So if you do have hobbies, big them up because people like talking about the things that are different about you. When I was about 13, 14, I quit Irish dancing because I basically got to as good as I could get, and then I didn't get any better. And I decided I wanted to start horse riding lessons. And my mum was like, "Well, that's fine, but you can pay for them yourself." So I was quite stubborn, got myself a job in this baker's, and I worked there from the age of from 13 through to the age of 23, when I finished uni. And my granddad used to love it because at the age of 13, I couldn't reach the bread that you can see on the top shelf there. And I'm not sure I could now, actually, to be fair. I've not grown much. But yeah, so basically from a small town, my mum is an administrator. She works in the local police station. My dad's a painter and decorator. And I hadn't really been exposed to many weird and wonderful careers. So when I left school, or just before I left school, I wanted to be a teacher. And I spoke to a few people, and one of my previous primary school teachers said to me, the one regret that she had was that she wished she'd gone to uni to study something that she enjoyed. And she was like, if you go and study something you love, and then you still want to be a teacher, she says, you then just have to do another year conversion course, basically, and you could still be a teacher. But then at least you've sort of gone and studied something that you enjoy for a year. And it's probably the best advice I've ever had, because since then, most of my decisions have been based on things that I enjoy doing. So 6th year in high school was like, what do I enjoy? I loved biology. I think a lot of it was to do with the fact that I found it quite not easy, but I was quite good at it compared to things like English and history. So started to go and look at universities. I went to Dundee for an open day, and it was I just loved it. I fell in love with it. It was like, it's quite a small campus, everything's together, and coming from a small town, that just felt quite comfortable to me. It was also far enough away from my home that I was guaranteed a place in halls, whereas Edinburgh was too close and I might have had to stay at home. And as much as university is about the education, the experience and living in halls and things like that is such a big part of it. So I'm glad basically I made the decision. So yeah, I studied biology at Dundee, did a couple of years biology, wasn't really loving it. It was okay, but I didn't like the lab work too much. Preferred sort of microbiology to things like human biology and medicine, so specialised in microbiology for my last 2 years. And then in my final year, I got to do an honours project. So you basically go into a proper research lab, you work with a professor, and that was just amazing. It was like you're surrounded by people who love what they do. It's quite inspiring. So I was like, oh, actually, this isn't too bad. But I wasn't 100% sure I wanted to commit to that sort of career path, like PhD, fellowships, lecturer. So I thought, I would take a year out essentially. So I think when you get to that stage, and you probably feel it already, everyone asks you what you want to do and you feel like you should know. And it is totally okay if you don't know what you want to do, because there's so many opportunities out there, and it's actually not a bad thing just to sort of go with what feels right at the time and then figure it out later. So I finished my degree and I decided to go to Australia. And I think another thing with like things like traveling, there's only a certain amount of time you can get away with just taking a year off and going to the other side of the world. So if you do have the opportunity, I highly recommend it. So I went to Australia for a year, spent some time in Sydney. And what I didn't really expect was that I quite missed studying. I quite missed university and science and things. So I had to think, and I was like, actually, you know what, like a PhD, it's 4 years, you get paid, and then you get to the end of it. And even if you don't want to stay in science, at least you get to be called a doctor. And, you know, that sounds quite cool. So I applied for PhDs. I found one in York that just sounded brilliant. It ticked all the right boxes. It was all the things that I was interested in. The supervisors seemed brilliant. Was lucky enough to get an interview. I had an interview, and it was 9 o'clock in the morning here, 9 o'clock at night in Sydney. So I had like shirt, makeup, hair done, and pajamas on the bottom, which is hilarious because now that is essentially how everybody does business over Zoom and Teams. So I was lucky enough to get offered the position, and then it was great because I had another 6 or 7 months in Australia. I knew what I was doing when I came back, so I could basically just enjoy my time. Traveling's quite expensive, but Australia have a lot of opportunities for farm work. So I went up to a place here, Townsville, and spent about 2 or 3 months driving this tractor up and down kilometre-long fields in a straight line, while the poor guys had to pick watermelons and throw them onto a trailer. It was for like $20 an hour as well. It was not a bad deal. So replenished the travelling fund, did a bit more travelling, and then came back and moved to York to start my PhD. And it was brilliant. I had like a great group. York is a beautiful city. I loved living there. But science is just absolutely not for me. Like the days spent in the lab where like you'd spend a week doing something, it wouldn't work, you'd have to start again on the Monday. And I quickly realised that if you want a career in academia, you have to really love it. And I definitely didn't love it enough. So then I started looking at different career opportunities and things that were out there. And I went to a careers conference, and there was a patent attorney there. And everything he said, it was the first I'd heard about it, and everything he said about the job, I was just like, yeah, that sounds like great. It's, you know, you get to learn about a whole load of different technologies. You don't have to step in a lab ever again. And you get to like argue with people, which, I mean, coming from Scotland, it's brilliant. So I applied to various places. I was lucky enough to get a job at Mathy's. And the interview, so our main office is in London and it's in the Shard. And I went to the interview and I was so intimidated because you go in and it's a beautiful building and everyone was like, oh, it looks very professional, and coming from where I come from, it was just not what I was used to. And then the interview was brilliant. They were so friendly. You could really tell that, so the partner and the managing associate that interviewed me just loved their jobs and they were so enthusiastic. And it kind of convinced me that it's definitely the career that I wanted. But on the way out, I texted my mum and I said, I definitely didn't get the job, but at least I got to go to the Shard. So, I mean, there was that. But it turns out I'd read it wrong and they did offer me the job and it was great. So the reason I joined Mathy is it's brilliant. So we're a top tier firm. So we have some amazing patent attorneys. We do some great business, but everyone is so friendly and everyone's so enthusiastic. We've got a great group of trainees who we're all going through the same sort of training process together. Everyone's very supportive. And me and James work in the Cambridge office. So this is a picture of the Cambridge office. And we have the best of both worlds because we can go into London and go to the big events where the whole firm is there. But we also have our own sort of social calendar. Because we're a smaller group, we're quite a tight-knit group. And we get to do things like go curling. And the guy in the middle here in the red shirt is one of our senior partners, and it turns out he was like junior world champion at curling, so you meet some interesting people. But yeah, so even though I'm a trainee patent attorney, I basically do the work of a patent attorney every day, just under the close supervision of a partner. I get to work across a whole range of technology fields. So yesterday I helped to file an application that related to caviar, And today I'm meeting with some tech transfer officers and some academics about breast cancer therapeutics. So I mean, it's no 2 days are the same. It's very varied. My exams are ongoing, so you have 4 sets, 4 exams to become UK qualified, and that once you're qualified, you then have the right to act before the UK Patent Office, and then the same again to become European qualified. And once passing them, then you have the right to act before the European Patent Office. But in reality, you are kept under close supervision until you're ready. So it's great, but I love it. And if you need anyone to sort of convince you that it's a great career, then I am your person. But yeah, and I think Rob is going to teach us about the great life of a trademark attorney.
Awesome. Hi, so so my name's Rob. I'm a trademark attorney and IP solicitor at Mathy and Squire'a. I think you can go to the next slide, James. So I'm originally from South Africa. I moved over to the UK about 3 years ago with my wife and my little boy. And like Rachel said, it's important that as a solicitor and as someone in this career is to also have other interests. And I mean, in South Africa, my interests included motorcycling, 4x4ing, etc. And it's important that you keep these things up, because when you're in the work environment, people want to know that you're not just a robot. They want to also know that you're a human, and having those interests also make a big difference to how you do your job on a daily basis. So a little bit about my background. I attended St Andrews College in South Africa, where my main subjects focused on English and history. So a little bit different to Rachel. I wasn't particularly good at science or biology, but I always really enjoyed English and essay writing, etc. And a lot of my extracurricular activities included sports and music and drama, and particularly music. And when I left school, I was a bit unsure of what I wanted to do, like I'm sure many of you are. And it's okay, because you never know in what direction your career ultimately is going to take you. So I started university and I had no idea what I was going to do. So I literally sat on the steps of the university that I'd been accepted to and opened the coursework book and picked a career. And I ended up doing a 3-year Bachelor of Social Sciences focusing on human resources and organizational psychology. And it was absolutely brilliant. I mean, and I think that despite the fact that I haven't practiced in it, it's really assisted me in my law career with dealing with people. But towards the end of my initial degree, I did a course in law, in labor law, funnily enough, and sort of law really piqued my interest. And at that stage, I was still playing quite a lot of music as sort of a follow-on from school, and I wanted to kind of find a way of combining my love of music with something with a sort of a day-to-day type career, and I then decided, okay, well, let's look at law and let's see if there are any avenues in law that could fulfill that sort of goal. And towards the end of my law degree, I stumbled across intellectual property, and this slotted right in with what I was really passionate about, because not only does IP cover things like patents and trademarks, as we've focused on, but it also involves a lot of copyright law, and obviously that relates to music. So I decided, right, well, let me see if I can focus on IP. And as I got more and more involved in IP, it really just started really speaking to what I wanted to do. So I then went on and actually did a Master's of Law in IP, and then just basically got into a law firm in Johannesburg, and although I still had an intention of going into some sort of copyright and music type of law, I then encountered the job of a trademark attorney, and this is this is really it's a fantastic way to exercise both sides of your mind in terms of both the legal side of your brain, so dealing with the actual law, but also a creative side, because on a daily basis, I'm encountering logos, I'm encountering word marks, I'm encountering new brands, and you can't just look at it and go, well, yes, it is or it isn't. You really have to sort of use your creative side and almost think like an advertiser, think like a marketer, think like a consumer in the marketplace, and put yourself in their shoes and evaluate whether this trademark is worth protecting. And it really is a day-to-day exercise. And like Rachel's mentioned, 2 days are never the same. I deal with trademarks in the UK, I can deal with trademarks in the US, the EU. I've got clients coming from all over the world. And it really is fantastic, because not only do you get to work with small startups in terms of companies that are just launching and wanting to protect their brand, but you also get to deal with some of the most famous brands in the world. So just as way of example, these are all clients that our firm represents in some form or another. And so you really get to work in conjunction with in-house counsel, understand how a business has developed, how a brand has become what it is, and at the same time you can watch a brand develop from the very beginning and be part of that business's journey. One of the things that I always really enjoy is sort of going into a supermarket or a shopping mall or somewhere like that, and seeing trademarks that I've actually assisted in protecting, and knowing that I was pivotal in getting that trademark to market. So I mean, what my job really entails on a daily basis, I have a lot of client meetings. I meet with people to discuss proposed trademarks, and if I feel that there's an issue with the trademark, then it really opens sort of a dialogue between me and the business owner to try and find something that's going to work, that fulfills both their needs in terms of branding, but also what is required in terms of the law. So it really is a partnership between ourselves and the business. So you really get a sort of a very broad understanding of how businesses work. And I think in addition to being a trademark attorney, I'm also an IP solicitor, and the advantage of being both is that you get to deal not only with the trademark side, but you also get to deal with the commercial side. So seeing how trademarks are licensed, how doing the litigation, the enforcement side of things, it really is an extremely fulfilling job, fulfilling career to follow. And although a lot of IP jobs do require you to have a science degree. If you are looking at doing a trademark degree, I don't have a science degree, but one of the things that you should consider if you are looking at a trademark, being a trademark attorney, is whether you have sort of a creative side or an interest in marketing, advertising, branding, etc. There's, you don't have to go into an advertising agency. You can actually follow a degree in law and still interact with those types of agencies. So it really is a great career path for somebody who wants to combine law with perhaps a creative side, if you're an artist or something like that. So in terms of career progressions, it really is a case, as we mentioned, of studying a law degree, and then once you join a law firm, you also have to be required to do some additional exams in order to qualify as a trademark attorney. It's like Rachel said, I think if you need any motivation for becoming a trademark, I'm the person to chat to, because I really enjoy my job. I've been doing it for close to 10 years now. And it's really, it's a fantastic and very rewarding career path.
Great, thank you very much, Rob. So we'd be more than happy to take any questions that anyone has. We'll also just refer you to these links. So if you'd like more information about careers in connection with intellectual property, then the Careers in Ideas website is really useful. That's www.careersinideas.org.uk. There's also our firm's website, which has a lot of useful information on, mathys-squire.com. And also, if you have any questions or would like any more information or advice on a future career in IP, then feel free to email our own HR team, who will be more than happy to answer any questions, and their address is there. It's hr@mathys-squire.com. And I would just add as well, in addition to the careers that we've discussed so far, firms like ours also have a wide range of careers in various kind of support functions. So we have a big team of records staff members, formality staff members, who basically monitor the progress of patent applications or trademark applications, make sure that all the deadlines, all the procedural steps have been complied with correctly. Of course, there are also people like accounts department members, marketing people, secretaries, all sorts of administrative people as well. So firms like ours have a wide range of careers to offer. But yeah, for now, we're more than happy to take any questions. So thank you very much. Are there any questions in the chat?
We haven't got any questions in the chat. I think we're nearly out of time. But as James said, you can contact them if you do have a question, or if you can contact your regional manager, who can put you in touch with them as well. But thank you so much for your time today. It's been a really interesting chat. I'm sure people have found out about careers they didn't know existed, and also that different degrees can lead to this career. It says not just law. In fact, it's probably not as much law. It's more the other subjects that link with it. So it's been really interesting and really insightful. So we've got quite a few people thanking in the chat. So thanks again, and thank you for your time.
Great. It's been a real pleasure being with you all. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.
Hello, Alison speaking. Yes, it is. Yeah.